Before you listen to the Tech Talk Daily podcast, I have to ask, are the high levels of uncertainty you're experiencing keeping you from making bold moves? Are you able to clearly see and act on the game-changing opportunities the pandemic has created? I'm Daniel Burris, serial entrepreneur, global technology futurist, and disruptive innovation expert, and right now, you have a choice to make. You can react to problems and disruptions after they happen, or you can learn to accurately anticipate disruptions before they disrupt and identify and pre-solve problems before they happen, giving you the ability to turn disruptive change into your biggest advantage. If you want to take control of your future and make a significant impact now and in the years ahead, join thousands of leaders from around the world by becoming a member of my Anticipatory Leader System, where you'll get the latest insights, processes, tools, and virtual coaching that will give you the certainty and confidence you need to actively shape a better future for you and your organization. Go to techblogwriter.co.uk and click on Daniel Burris.
Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where it's Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Did you know this? I have written an article for Cyber News, which should be live by the time you get to listen to this episode, where I feature a few things that we should all be possibly checking out. And so I urge you to pop over and have a look at that. But I want to stick with that theme today because the widespread decision corporations have made to allow their employees to work from home is, let's face it, a great thing. But the rapid move to remote working has left many businesses even more vulnerable to threats, including increased risk of browser attacks, unsecured wireless networks, and the inability to remediate remote security incidents. And within this new working from home dynamics, corporations are now challenged to be even more agile in their security posture too. And one of the greatest deficiencies facing security teams in enterprises is their lack of agility, while at the same time, attackers, of course, are more agile than ever. So I invited the guys from Nega Networks onto the podcast today to find out a little bit more. So buckle up and hold on tight so I can beam your ears all the way to Tel Aviv so we can speak with their VP of Corporate Strategy right now. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. Thanks, Neil, and thanks for having me on your podcast. So my name is Zev, and I'm responsible for the corporate strategy at Nega Networks, we're a Silicon Valley-based network visibility company. My experience spans way too long, over 20 years in various leadership roles in global public companies and startups. Being part of the information technology evolution, I was active on both sides as an enterprise client that consumed information technology and also as a vendor that developed IT technologies. So being said that, I think I was being able to see the two sides of the coin helped me really to absorb what really matters and why. Especially when I moved up into executive and leadership roles during my professional journey. So I have to admit that after so many years, I still have passion about technology innovation with more insight today on business impacts that create industry disruptions. Okay, so that's really in a nutshell on myself.
Excellent. And before we started recording today, we were talking about the current landscape and the impacts of COVID, etc. And of course, the widespread decision corporations have been forced to make to allow employees to work from home is for the most part, a great thing. But can you tell me a little bit more about why the rapid move to remote working has left many businesses ever more vulnerable to cybersecurity threats, including increased risk of browser attacks, unsecured wireless networks, and the inability to remediate remote security incidents? Because I could go on and on. There's just so many, isn't there?
No, you're totally right. It's the issue is that with work from home, there are a couple of pitfalls. The first one is shadow IT, anything which is not controlled and visible to corporate IT teams. Second one is that we have large spectrum of devices at home. They all reside in home perimeters, so getting visibility on the range of devices and the entire network to identify the threats and vulnerabilities is pretty much a complex task for all businesses at any size, I would say. Now, let's multiply the problem by the number of remote workers and the number of connected elements from laptops, mobile devices that we have plenty of them, and complete set of new smart home IoTs, and you get a formula that is really complicated. So with the change in the landscape and metamorphosic application and network environment, I think that the attackers, they now have to simply identify where the employees are based out of and launch smaller DDoS attacks on those employees' personal computers. So this will lead to employee not able to connect to the enterprise network or other online services, and in the way, the work and business process will be disrupted. So I think that's really the case of those vulnerabilities and security threats.
And another challenge is with that new set of working from home dynamics, corporations also need to be more agile in their security posture. But where do they begin to do just that? Because again, it's such a fine balance, isn't it, to get it just right?
Yeah, maybe before we dive into security posture and steps that corporates can take, let's start maybe to discuss the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Well, in our digital era, which is practically the new norm, so anything is possible and almost everything can be done remotely. The more we connected, it's a kind of paradox, but the more we connected, the less we secure. And everything is digitally connected via those interdependent wireline and wireless networks that enable new dimension of communications, applications, and obviously a broad range of services that we consume. So we're witnessing a sort of a strange paradox. So an easy and fast access to network and data makes our businesses successful, but nowadays with all those changes of the perimeter and changes of the habits of how we really, conduct our businesses, also makes sensitive information and business continuity more exposed to cyber threats. And I would say that this new dynamics present huge challenges to security and network operations teams inside those corporations. They need expanded visibility across this complicated and very dynamic, I would say, battlefield. Most of those corporations, they need very tight collaboration today between security and network operations to do more with less, because obviously nothing is enough in terms of manpower, and they need to ensure they can sustain the balance between business continuity and security posture to ensure the same quality of experience that now remote employees need, the partners that actually engage with those corporations, and obviously suppliers, in terms of those suppliers that in the business chain. From discussing with various customers, corporations are facing so many challenges today. It's from starting from VPN capacity upgrades, because now everything is multiplied in terms of bandwidth. Everything is concentrated in a way, and protecting workers with network and security tools, intensifying phishing campaigns, that we could see all over today. Another problem that I was hearing a lot was the bring your own device now, that and identity access management, which creating this difficulties or new paradigm of zero touch. And control over the software applications, and absolutely more. We could name so many of them. So absorbing all those challenges and security strategies for corporations, I would say there are a couple of agile steps. One, especially for those network and security operations teams, one is really to extend the access to remote data and tools. Now they really, even those people that protect those corporations, they many times work remotely, not necessarily in the corporate perimeter. The other point which is relevant is the alternative access methods to corporate and cloud services. regardless, think about any of those people that I mentioned, if they located in a nomadic or let's say remote home, they suddenly could have different type of problems like home connection to the internet. Do they need overlay connection suddenly, or underlay networks are not active, so they could consume something different to access those resources. Implement network segmentations specifically, which is important to limit the attack surface and lateral movement, because exposure of those different points is inevitable. It happens all the time. Another point which, when I was thinking about discussion with different corporations was, the updating corporate security policy, specifically with the incident response descriptive plan. What happens if then disaster recovery, including all the compliance and regulations. Think about if you're a public company and you had a breach, you need to declare in, I think, based on the regulations, like 72 hours, what happened. And then you need to provide forensics. Do you have enough forensics to cover all the different type of footprint of your infrastructure right now? So plenty of problems. And I think the last one really that also we're dealing as a company is really eliminating the blind spots and ensure full access and visibility across the entire security stack for network operations and security operation tools. I would say that you cannot really secure what you don't know and see. So that the last point was very critical.
Absolutely. And before we delve a little bit deeper into the solution, I think a lot of people are aware of the vulnerabilities that they may have in their home or in their workplace. But can you tell me a little bit more from the other side about how attackers are highly innovative and can also use that latest technology to their advantage? Is there anything you can share from the attacker's point of view?
Oh, the latest COVID situation created, maybe I will be very blunt, chaos and many opportunities for attackers. And if you're not afraid, you don't really understand the problem. It's as blunt as I can be here. Because what we see lately is that the volume, the velocity, variety of attacks is something we never faced before. It's a period, And three interesting points maybe when we look at the attackers, and the whole situation of chaos. The latest events actually stole the globalization trend. Think about it. If we were always striving to be globalized, to cooperate with different countries, different companies, businesses, today it's a bit stalled. Each domain is on its own. But ironically, globalization of cybercrime increased and even expanded. That's a power multiplier. Another point is massive move to digital business really increased exposure to attacks and serve as wider spectrum of options for attackers. And I have to admit that also creative and sophisticated attacks performed in massive scale. Threats are constantly evolving, and attackers now spending significant time, money, and effort to develop scams that are sufficiently sophisticated to victimize even savvy professionals that they know, they feel, they breathe, and they know security. Another part which you could see disadvantage is that the accelerated technology changes. And this is really a big issue because it looks like IT and security teams overwhelmed today, and they always reactive because they chasing those different type of advantages of new technologies that not necessarily always enable them to be in the first pay of action. Another point, I would say that cybercrime as a service ecosystem is one of the biggest reasons why the cybercrime industry grows dramatically. I think I was reading some article that was talking about that cybercrime as a service generates more than $1 trillion in revenue every year. So if specific target identified, it's just a matter of time. I remember one of CSOs said that enterprise divided to two types: the ones that hacked and the ones that hacked, but they don't know they have been hacked. So in that kind of paradigm, it's complex, and usually you see that security incident detection takes too long. Usually those incidents, they starting and they last. The attacker will wait. They have the patience. They go and do this lateral movement. Number two, the modern IT architectures and regulations create also new blind spots for network monitoring and security. If we talk about regulations like privacy, which means if your traffic is encrypted, same can be also as cyber threats. They use encryption in order to be invisible. They use command control, malware, and everything is encrypted in those channels. So if you also preserve the privacy of the users, you have also issues in those tools that used by cyber criminals. I think that additional advantage of attackers is shared knowledge and the marketplace. Think about dark web, which enables so many viable tools, so many cybercrime as a service professionals that can actually provide the best focused security areas that they have expertise in. And the other part is that, the IT tools, efficiency and agility, they are not really able to keep the pace with the attacks. You cannot spend enough capex. It will be never enough in terms of how you invest your money in. And attackers always will be one step ahead. It starts from reconnaissance or intelligence in a simple language. And you could see that successful attack can be broken down typically in 3 stages: the network infiltration, attack surface you mentioned it, web assets, network resources, and the social engineering actually attacks that just inflated today and they're becoming very sophisticated. The expansion of those attackers, typically they study the target, the routine, the movement, the organizational hierarchy to access sensitive data. And usually the extraction of critical data, all this without being detected. They're even creating different type of white noise tactics in order to distract security teams by using some fake DDoS on honeypots. So all in all, the attackers, they will be always one step ahead. It's the fact of life here. It's too much complication here.
Yeah, it is. And the world of cybersecurity is often likened to a giant game of cat and mouse, or even a game of chess, especially when you're starting to look at bringing in artificial intelligence into this. You've got bad AI versus good AI. But I'm curious, though. I mean, what are the big operational differences, would you say, between attackers and defenders?
Operational differences, I'm thinking about, how to define it correctly, the operational differences, but I think that operational differences is that if you look at overall spectrum of IT infrastructure and how actually the attackers, how they constructed today, they more and more becoming like full-blown enterprise. You have project managers, you have very good support services, you have all those imitations of the regular world, but from other side of the coin, plus the advantage of using very sophisticated technologies. So, for example, you mentioned artificial intelligence and machine learning. Yeah, actually, the other side is using them much better even, especially when we're looking at how it could be distributed from the perspective of usage. So I would say that probably this is a cat and mouse story that will never going to end.
And that feels like a perfect opportunity to introduce everyone listening to Nega Networks. So can you tell me a little bit more about the role in this battle that you guys are going to play in all this?
Yeah, we maybe to set the scene to our listeners, I would like to start from the fact that Nega Network is a relatively young company. We founded in 2017. We're self-funded and owned by Interface Master Technologies. It's actually a parent company that is active over 20 years. So Nega Networks was a spin-off from our parent company with clear objective to focus on nimble development of new solutions. One of them is our award-winning open visibility platform. And if I need to define, or let's say look at our journey right now, we really at the inflection point of industry recognition and also business objective that we're achieving right now. In terms of the view of our solution and where we're actually located in this battle, so our solutions are typically deployed in core networks as mediation layer between networks and cybersecurity tools. Typically, the value of our solution is to empower security and network operations with visibility and traffic intelligence, regardless if it will be from physical or virtual networks. And I mentioned previously open visibility platform. So we moved one step ahead to enable efficient and agile collaboration between network operations and security operations. The strategy of this platform she actually is based on three key areas, or let's say three key pillars. One is really high performance intelligent traffic delivery, which means we can deliver the right traffic to the right tool for inspection. The second one is the freedom of choice. It's an open architecture, so we can host different type of virtual tools. It could be cybersecurity tools, it could be network traffic intelligence tools. But we're not really constrained on type of tool, and we give this liberty to different type of partners. And actually, this is driving a very efficient and good technology alliance program. In fact, the Technology Alliance Program enable Agile solution to our customers and partners. This Technology Alliance ecosystem announced actually early this year. It continue to grow from the perspective of innovation, and it's part of our story. And we have very large and significant collaboration with well-known large partners. And at the same time, we enable smaller innovative startups to be part of our ecosystem and empower their solutions. So it's kind of a win-win scenario. They're giving a lot of areas of specific targeted solution because the world of cybersecurity is changing daily. And this means that even the very large players not necessarily have instant solution for any problem that evolves on a daily basis. When we see this kind of phenomena, we definitely see sometimes those smaller startups that we load on our platform, and they can be used by enterprises, corporates in much more efficient way to cope with agility and innovation.
And I'm glad you mentioned agility and innovation there, because it feels like so many businesses now are desperately trying to find that balance, because they know they need to improve their infrastructure. They know they need to innovate more and be more agile as a business to get that edge over the competitors. But equally, they need to secure it all as well. So just to bring everything to life that we've talked about today, can you tell me a little bit more about some of the steps that enterprises can take to put a faster, easier pace of innovation in place, but also, most importantly, while minimizing risk at the same time?
Security practices, I think they need to match business objectives and innovation objectives to keep successful everyone and nimble. And innovation roadmap will need to take into account the fact that risk will continue to be sort of a silver bullet in the current environment. We need to understand that we need to expect the unexpected, and we should anticipate many changes that will happen in this fast and radical paces. Just to mention the digital transformation evolution. So we were supposed to, this is something that was supposed to happen 3 to 5 years. And everything accelerated in less than 9 months with COVID-19, and specifically the IT environment. So let's face it, there is no other choice, and we must adapt the agility. It's kind of complicated across the board, but paramount for corporations that run their business in highly dynamic and unpredictable environment. And, I'm thinking about before COVID started, the RSA, the human element was the theme of this big security event this year. And the human element is very important factor in innovation and security, and critical to mitigation of risk. So it's kind of a dual sword story. The classic and natural human behavior is to reject the unknowns or anything new that disrupt their comfort zone. And typically, the common perception is that 80% of people don't like changes. So innovation designated many times as this old phrase of moving beyond your comfort zone. So in order to drive faster and easier paces of innovation and keep also the risks to minimum, you need to focus on the audience and perform education and strong belief system. Insurance, you cannot really get the insurance that it's not going to happen. So corporates should set their credible messages and educate on risk all the time, ensure that everyone clearly understands them from top down employees. I believe that genuine messaging, clear security directive enables credibility. So getting back to practices, the first step to set corporate directive and communicate, especially now that everything is done remotely and it's very elastic in a way from what we see. So the corporate strategy must also include and involve, I would say, in more precise word, security operations in any business decision planning and business enablement. Because the security team is always dictated by sort of paranoia of inside-outside threats. And they're right, which is, I have to admit, they're totally right. There are so many threat vectors into the new digital infrastructure that you cannot really trust anything and anyone. So I believe, again, messaging people and focus of involving more the security operations in the whole business stack.
And the success of any technology or even new way of working is always going to be determined by the culture change within an organization. So where do you begin now in developing a different mindset to help your company stay ahead of the attackers? And how can a business overall overcome these kind of challenges? Because as we record this today, we're right in the middle of Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and everyone's kind of saying that employees are the weakest link, especially now they're working from home. So there just seems to be this whole mindset and culture change that's required. But where does a business begin there?
Culture changes starts from the top, from the corporate heads.
Yeah.
And changing the culture is first of all explaining the risks. And when people starting to understand that anything, especially, now that most of those organizations that became distributed, I just think about two names, okay, that let's maybe put them on the stage. Think about Fujitsu announced, if I'm not mistaken, 3 months ago that they mandate or they enable 80,000 employees to work from home. Let's think about this number. It's like almost a city, correct? Yeah. Now, let's think about the fact that if all of those employees currently working from home, how to create this perception that your home is one of those typical breaches of security. Because when we've been in those corporate walls, it was much easier for security and networking operations to handle, at least most of the things I mentioned previously. But now we need to ensure that this corporate directive will be so clear. And we need to keep on creating those educational sets, reminders. Even I think that those games of red and blue teams, in order to ensure that people understand the difficulties and breaches, especially with separated walls of, let's say, the walled garden environment, and now is totally distributed. I think also the second name that I thought about was Siemens. Siemens, I think, also created this kind of directive. And think about Siemens, they're active in more than 100 countries. They have even double or even triple the number of employees. And when we're talking about culture, think about the cultural problem across the different geographies. Culture is different. So now you need to ensure the top-down directive is working like in the military, very organized, very hierarchical, and very clear. So maybe again, it's a tough question to answer, but I assume again it starts from a very organized way of. It's not a democracy in this way.
I am conscious we have discussed a lot of problems today, and it has been a year of doom and gloom. So I'd love to end on a positive note. I mean, what makes you hopeful that the good guys will fight that good fight in cybersecurity in the next 12 months and beyond? Is there anything positive you can leave us with today?
Well, the Kubernetes space is still very much like the Wild West. So my main hope is that the resistance of the good will prevail the bad. Sounds like maybe a perfect world, but we must be optimistic in our nature. And I think this is really something positive that I can say for the future.
Love that. And for anyone listening that would like to find out more information about you guys and the work that you're doing and stay up to speed with everything, or even contact your team, what's the best way of doing that?
Well, in new digital arena, probably the best way will be simply to Google Nega Networks and reach our web, social media, and relevant articles about us. Just don't confuse with Niagara Falls, but you will get there.
You'll end up with a very different website if you do that. But
exactly.
So I'll add the links to the blog post that will accompany this episode. But more than anything, just a big thank you for taking the time to share everything that you're doing with me today. You are a young company, but you're doing some incredibly cool stuff. And I'd love to continue to follow you on your journey and get you back on next year when the world's going to be a better place. So
absolutely, Neil. For a beer and more personal kind of meeting, not on remote. Yeah.
Oh, imagine that. Maybe we can both fly and have a beer. Yeah, we'll make that happen.
Yeah. So Neil, thank you very much.
Thank you. So a big thank you to Ziv for sharing the big operational differences between attackers and defenders and how that has actually put security groups at a severe disadvantage, especially in today's remote working environments. But as you know, I'm a solutions, not problems kind of guy, so I loved hearing more about the steps enterprises can take to put a faster, easier pace of innovation in place while also minimising risk. And just as important is developing a different mindset to stay one step ahead of the attackers. But if there is anything that you would like to hear about or that you want to share with me about Cybersecurity Awareness Month here in October, or if you've got any questions, whatever it may be, please email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com. My Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn is at Neil C. Hughes, and my website is techblogwriter.co.uk. So that's it for today's episode. Stay safe and secure and make sure everything connected is protected out there, and I'll join you again tomorrow for another episode. So thanks for listening, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.